כאשר עצמי לכל הצדיקים האמיתי שלנו לכל הצדיקים האמיתי ושוכני אף הקדוש ושבח רצנה בואו יבחד רבנו הקדוש צדיק יסוד עולם נחמן ובכל חוכמה רבנו נחמן מפרק אמת שמחה נחמן מאומן זכותו תגן עלינו והכל ישראל אמן. Okay, so I was just talking to Ari that Bezrat Hashem, this class should be Leilu Nishmat, all those Neshamot who passed away in this past Shabbat's attacks and this weekend, that all the Neshamot should have an Aliyah, that all the Neshamot should have Tikkun. Bezrat Hashem, all those who need Refuah should have Refuah Shlema, all the hostages should be returned back home, and that Hashem Yitbarach should turn the entire situation. That everything should be transformed for good. So we're just talking about this inyan where Rabbeinu teaches us, or Rabbi Natan teaches us in Likutei Halachot about Bereshit bara Elokim, the first three words of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elokim, Safet Tevot Emet. Rabbi Natan teaches us that Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning Hashem Yitbarach created Hashamayim et Aret, the heavens and the earth. That Rabbi Natan says, take the last letters of Bereshit bara Elokim. You have Bereshit, you have the Tav. You have bara, you have the aleph, and Elokim, you have the mem. You mix them around, you get the word emet. Why? Because the seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the way that he seals the Torah, is emet. And this is what we were just reading in Torah Kuf Yud Bet of Likutei Halachot. A Torah that's founded on the idea of praying to Hashem Yitbarach according to the emet that you're in right now, according to the best truth that you know, that you should pray to Hashem Yitbarach with the best truth that you have. That means whatever you think is the most truthful in the moment that you are in right now, that's the way you pray. Now, not every person merits the emet l'amito, the truth of truths. You know, the truth of truth is a level of truth that really only the true tzaddik can get there, and he illuminates that to the students. We're going to discuss what the emet l'amito means in this Likutei Halachot because it's one of the most important things to understand. But the emet, each and every person has according to his level. For example, one person's emet might be different from another person's emet. What does that mean? When a person is just doing teshuvah, for example, he cannot do everything at once. He cannot begin, if a person doesn't keep Shabbat, doesn't do anything, he cannot begin to do all of that in one shot. Or even if he wants to start keeping Shabbat to the best of his ability, he's not going to keep it the same way a Haredi is keeping Shabbat. Because he doesn't know the Halachot, he doesn't know the structure, he doesn't know all the things that are involved with it. Of course, a person might only grow to a level of kashrut that is higher than the one he's at because of years of Avodat Hashem. Etc., etc., etc. You know, the way you speak, your language might not be as refined unless you take some time to refine your diburim, you speak more words of Torah, tefillah. So, of course, each and every person has an emet that's applicable to him and him only. Now, the tzaddik, the beauty of the tzaddik is that he's able to illuminate each and every individual according to the emet that he's in. Meaning that the tzaddik ha-emet, he's able to show this individual where he stands and what the emet is that he needs to do. Because Rabbeinu says very carefully, be very careful not to breach the gates of Kedusha. Meaning what? That when you want to be holy and you want to draw close to Hashem Yitbarach, you cannot do it all in one shot. What is the warning that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to the Jewish people? That Hashem Yitbarach tells Moshe Rabbeinu explicitly to the Jews. That what? Be careful. Pen yasu lirot et Hashem. Perhaps they'll breach the boundaries, the gate around Har Sinai, to see Hashem. Why? Because when the Torah was being given, the Jewish people wanted to see that Kedusha. They were, any Jew, the second he sees an experience of Hashem, he's inclined to jump on it. The problem with doing that is it becomes too much light, and the vessel cannot contain it. This is all in a matter of vessel, what we're talking about here. What each and every person can contain at his level. And each and every person is at a different level. Rabbeinu says, no two people on the same level. No two people. In fact, when you go one level higher, the person that was at that level higher, you actually push him to the next level. That's the chesed.
What about lower? Other way around? Does it sound around?
I don't know. Meaning that if you fall, the other
Someone
person
falls, what happens to the other person?
It would seem that it's possible that person below you could replace the level.
Yeah.
Or what ends up happening is and then another person is descended from this. But yet again, it's not. Rabbi Natan speaks about this actually, that a true Talmid needs to experience the falls and the descents of the teacher. That he too needs to experience the fall. That when you know a person's really attached to the tzaddik, that whenever the tzaddik falls, you too feel it for him also. Meaning that you're connected to his neshama. Nafsho kishura benafsho.
What does that mean when the tzaddik falls?
Meaning the tzaddik experiences a certain descent, a certain pain. The Talmid also has to feel that pain.
You're saying embarrassment of whatever.
Yeah, it's possible, whether it's an embarrassment or whether, for example, when Moshe Rabbeinu struck the rock, he was not able to enter the land. And the Jewish people knew of this. You know what the biggest problem was in Midrash says? That they did not pray for Moshe. But the problem is, if they were really attached to Moshe, they would have prayed for Moshe because they experienced that pain for him.
But I'm saying, like, today, how is it possible to like press everything whenever people speak out?
When people speak against a tzaddik, that it should affect you.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? When people have machloket against Rabbeinu, for example, they speak a dibur against Rabbi Shimon, or they say Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai echad v'shalom never wrote the Zohar. That should hurt the person. You know the shtuyo. That should hurt a person because you're attached to the tzaddik. You know? So all these things that shows attachment. Why? Whenever someone else experiences a fall, you feel it for him. That's the beauty of the Jewish people, that essentially we are always experiencing for one another. Rabbeinu said, I reached the madrega that Hashem granted me the ability to feel the pain of every person who came before me. It's written down in Chaim Moran that Rabbeinu prayed and prayed and prayed to get to the level that any person who would come to him with a problem, Rabbeinu would feel that pain as if he was in that experience. Rabbeinu said, I could pray and in 1 second I could completely be back to normal, and in 1 second I could feel it. So the way he writes in Chaim Moran, that's a tzaddik. The tzaddik is constantly experiencing the pain of every single individual. So we see here that there's a nefesh, and it says in v'nafsho keshura benafsho, that his soul is tied, bound to his soul. This is what it means to be attached. So we were talking about what? Okay, one person gets to the next level, it brings up a person up, you know? So each and every person, back to the topic, has their own emet, has their own truth. So you have to understand what that truth is. You have to understand where you stand. That's a very difficult thing. Rabbeinu says, the best thing you can do is to pray according to your truth, where you stand. You might not be emet lamito, you might not be at the deepest truth, you might not understand the emet at the highest degree, but you pray to the best of your ability, meaning even if you have ulterior motives and this and that, you recognize them to the best that you can. If you know you have ulterior motives, pray to Hashem Yitbarach and reveal the ulterior motives that you do know. Whatever you don't know because you're not at that level. Slowly, the more you become conscious, Hashem Yitbarach will reveal that to you. That's when you do what you do to continue to pray to Hashem. So look what Rabbeinu says in Torah Kuf Yud Bet. He said, "Va'ikar shakot talui bo," the main thing that everything is dependent on, hu emet, is the truth. Lelech bederech emet lefi madregato, to walk on the pathway of truth according to where you stand. Meaning Hashem Yitbarach is not expecting you to walk on the pathway of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's expecting you though to be honest with yourself, where you know you are. Don't fake it. Be honest with Hashem according to your level. He's not expecting you to be honest according to the level of the chassid in Mea Shearim or the tzaddik that is Rabbi Natan, you know. Ki chotamo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet, because the seal of Hashem is brought down in the Gemara Shabbat and the Gemara Yoma is truth. The seal of Hashem Yitbarach is truth. When Hashem Yitbarach signs something, that's the seal. It's a stamp. It's emet. And how do we know this? The first words of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elokim safet tevot emet. We hide the word emet because the entire Torah is sealed with emet. Vehu yesod hakol, and the truth is the foundation of everything. Ki emet hu rosh toch sof, because emet is the beginning, the middle, and the end. So what's the emet? It's the rosh toch sof. If you take the first letter of the word emet, it's the first letter of the alphabet. It's aleph. If you take the letter men, the middle letter of emet, it's the middle letter of the alphabet, and then the tav is the last letter, of course. Emet comprises of everything from beginning to end. And since this person's at a level of emet, so when a person has truth, the light of Hashem Yitbarach is in it, is in this person. Which means what? That Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi נחמן, is saying that what? The light of Hashem Yitbarach is truth. That is the light of Hashem. The light that brings, that brings light to all darkness, that is emet. And we know Hashem Yitbarach's seal is emet. His stamp is emet. And this is what it says about this person who speaks to Hashem Yitbarach with truth according to the best of his ability. What did he say? Hashem ori v'ishi, we say in Tehillim Chav Zayin. Hashem is ori v'ishi, he's my light and he's my salvation. Why is he my light? Meaning, because he speaks truth, and Hashem Yitbarach's seal is truth, Hashem Yitbarach is illuminating you with that truth that you're speaking. Meaning, according to how much truth you speak, that's how much Hashem Yitbarach will illuminate you and bring you your salvation. See the chidush here? Your salvation is dependent on how much truth you speak. How honest you are with God. When you're speaking to Hashem, you get in front of Him with people to do it, and you begin to converse with God. How honest are you? So look what he says. Look what Rabbeinu continues here. And because Hashem Yitbarach is this man's light, because he's speaking truth, and Hashem Yitbarach's seal is truth. So now that you're speaking truth, and you're literally with your words drawing down Hashem Yitbarach, the light, into the darkness that you're in, Rabbeinu teaches us, he says that what? You're able to find entrances out of that darkness, out of that place in which you're in. Whichever darkness a person seems to find himself in, whichever galut a person seems to be trapped in, Rabbeinu says that the way to get out is how much truth you speak, how honest you are with Hashem. So that Emet is actually the salvation. Because we know in the Gemara it says, one who goes to make himself impure, Hashem Yitbarach opens up the way for him. Meaning he's not going to prevent it. If you ever want to go to do Tumah and go do things that are tameh and impure, Hashem Yitbarach will allow him to do it. The Yetzer Hara will open up the gates for him. But what? Rabbeinu comes to say it's a double entendre. It's like a double-edged sword. If there's entrances to get into the Tumah, Rabbeinu says then there's ptachim to get out. There's entrances to get out. And what's the way out? It's the Emet, the truth that you speak. So that's where we go back here. And Rabbeinu continues over here. We're not going to get so into it. But Rabbi נחman teaches us that everything Hashem Yitbarach is chafetz in, everything Hashem Yitbarach desires is Emet, it's truth. That's Hashem Yitbarach's main desire, to be honest with him. So going back to the beginning of the Parashat, Bereshit bara Elokim, that when God created the world, He created the world with Emet, truth. But now we're going to understand the story of how the world was created. And this includes a lot of secrets of the Midrash and the Zohar and Kabbalah and the writings of the Arizal. Rabbi Natan is going to put all that aside and go into the real meaning, the Kavanah behind it. Because what we're talking about is practical stuff. Let's put all of the what do you call it? This hasagot aside, the perceptions that are very lofty aside, and let's get tachlis, what's the inyan here? Let's get to the bottom of what Rabbi Natan is trying to teach us. Besimchat Torah, akol olin leTorah. We see on Simchat Torah, everybody goes up for an aliyah. Leorot shekol echad miYisrael yeshochelet betorat emet. To teach that every person has a portion within the Holy Torah, within the Torah that is true. You know, it's Torat Emet, the truthful Torah, okay? Moshe Emet veTorato Emet. Moshe is Emet and the Torah is Emet. So, everybody goes up into the Torah to show Rabbi Natan saying that each and every individual, no matter where his level is, has a portion within the Torah. And that's what Rabbeinu teaches us here. That what? Lelech bederech emet lefi madregato. All Hashem Yitbarach asks us is to go on the pathway of truth according to the level that we are in right now. Meaning not a level higher, not a level lower. Be honest with yourself where you stand. That's all Hashem Yitbarach wants. He doesn't expect you to be truthful the same way Moshe Rabbeinu is truthful, same way the tzaddikim are truthful. He expects you to be truthful the way you are truthful right now. Not to fake it, to be as honest as you can. So, what is Rabbi Natan saying? That each and every person who walks on this path, who's as honest as he possibly can be, has a portion in the Torah. And therefore he goes up on Simchat Torah for an aliyah. Each and every person goes up for an aliyah on Simchat Torah because, to teach us what? That the Torah is Emet, and each and every person who associates himself with the Torah has a portion within it. To teach us that each and every Jew has a portion within the holy and the truthful Torah. And now Rabbi Natan goes deep within the kavanah of what it really means to be Emet. Because Rabbi Natan says, the main aspect of truth, the realest truth that exists, is lekarev velo lerachek, to bring someone close and not to push someone away. And we're going to explain what that means. The main thing is that what each and every person needs to purify and to refine that point of truth, to reveal that point of truth that exists within each and every single Jew. To reveal the point of Emet within each and every single Jewish person. Even those who are extremely far, even those Resha'im. Rabbeinu is saying that within each and every person exists an Emet that is unique to him. And that Emet within him is the Torah, which is why he goes up. Because when he goes up to the Torah, he's showing the world that I have a portion of the Torah because I have a piece within me that is Emet to me. Because this is the main desire of Hashem. This is the Ikar Amitat Retzono Yitbarach. This is Hashem Yitbarach's main truth. As it's brought down deep within the Sfarim. And this is why we say at the end of the Torah, the last words of the Torah, Asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. This is what Moshe Yitbarach did to all the eyes of the Jewish people. I'm going to explain the connection between the ending of the Torah and the beginning of the Torah. ואמרו רבותינו ז"ל, the Chachamim say, this is incredible, ששיבר את הלוחות לעיניהם. The Chachamim, on the last words of the Torah, begin to discuss what it means, Asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael, that Moshe did before the eyes of the Jewish people. What did he do? What's the Torah commenting on? What event? And the Chachamim say, the sages say, that this is referencing whenever Moshe Yitbarach broke the luchot before the eyes of the Jewish people. So, it's a very big question. Of course, the luchot only happened way earlier. And why end off the Torah on this idea that Moshe Yitbarach did something which seems bad? Why end off the Torah, le'enei kol Yisrael, on a bad note? And say that what? Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchot in front of the Jewish people. This is what it's referencing. Even if it's not explicit in the Torah that this is what he did before the eyes of the Jewish people, we know the Chachamim are expanding the Torah according to the truth. So if that's the case, why the Kavanah is so negative? And Rabbi Nathan is going to teach us that it's actually not negative at all. So look what he says. And we know we do not end the Torah and stop there. We immediately begin the Torah because the Torah is infinite. So as the Torah ends, we start again. The maftir is what? Bereshit. And we read Bereshit bara Elokim. From the beginning, we go directly back to, from the end, we go back to the beginning, because everything is one full circle, and it's infinite. So, what do we say about the Torah? We say Bereshit bara Elokim at the beginning. In the beginning, Hashem created. Ki rosh devar Emet, because what do we say about the word of truth? Now, Rabbi Nathan is going to connect everything full circle. What is the truth? The truth stands at the head. Rosh devarecha Emet, it says in the verse. Rosh devarecha Emet, meaning the beginning of your words is truth. The head of your words is truth. The starting point of your words, your diborim, are truth. Which means Emet has a connotation of being at the Rosh, the head. Which is why Bereshit comes from the word Rosh. We're going to discuss later, play on the words Bereshit and what this has to do with. But Rosh, we see at the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, has the word Rosh. It's the idea of Emet. We see the last letters of the last letters of the first three words of Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elokim. You take the last letters. You have the Tav, you have the Aleph, and you have the Mem. Mix them around. You have Emet. The seal of Hashem Yitbarach is hidden within the three words. So the beginning of the Torah is hidden with the word Emet. The beginning of words are with Emet. The head of everything is Emet. Emet is the pinnacle of everything. The Chachamim say. Because what did it say in the first pasuk of the Torah? Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning Hashem created. Sofet tevot Emet. We see the last letters are Emet. Ki ikar beriyat haolam haya l'yedei Emet, because the main creation of the world happened through Emet. Shehu ikar kiyun ma'olam, because the only way the world can exist is through truth. And why did the last letter start with Emet? Because we said that the Emet is the beginning and it's also the end. Rosh toch sof. The beginning, the middle, the end. The word Emet is comprised of three letters. The Aleph is the first letter, as we discussed. The Mem is the middle letter, and the Tav is the last. So Emet comprises everything from the beginning to the end. So we see Rosh Devar Emet, the head of all words is Emet, meaning the Rosh. And what Safet Tevot of Bereshit bara Elokim, the ending letters of Bereshit bara Elokim is Emet. So from the Rosh to the Sof, Emet it comprises of everything. And Rabbi Nathan is teaching us that the only way the world could have been created was through the principle and the midah of Emet, of truth. Ach be'emet, but the truth is, halom matzinu shamru b'tenu zal. Don't we find that the Chachamim say, she'emet amar ali bare ha'olam mechamat she'u maleh shkarim? To understand what Rabbi Nathan is saying, we have to go to the Midrash. In the beginning of time, it's brought in the Midrash Rabbah that angels of Emet, truthful angels, came to Hashem Yitbarach and complained to Hashem that He was creating the world. They came to Hashem, and it says in the Midrash that the Emet came to Hashem, the truth came to Hashem and complained not to create the world. It said, do not create the world, and came and brought a claim against Hashem Yitbarach to not create the world. Why? Because the world is full of sheker, full of falsehood. The second you create the world, you allow for the presence of evil. The world saw, of course, that Adam would sin. So why create the world in the first place if it's going to be filled with such falsehood? And yet, we say in the Midrash that Rabbi Nathan brings down that the entire world sustains itself through Emet. So there's a contradiction here. The Emet comes to Hashem Yitbarach and tells Hashem not to create the world. And then Rabbi Nathan saying the only way the world was created is through Emet. So what's going on here? There's an entire contradiction. But look what the Midrash says. Hashem Yitbarach took the truth and he threw it to the ground. It says in the verse, Emet arza, he threw the truth to the earth. At the beginning of the time, when the truth came to Hashem Yitbarach and told Hashem Yitbarach, do not create the world, Hashem Yitbarach took the truth and threw it to the earth. Emet arza. To understand this, look how far it goes. Emet is the seal of Hashem. Hashem Yitbarach took one of his own names, his own seals, and threw it to the earth. He said, I don't care. I'm throwing myself to the ground. And look how far it goes. And afterwards, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Yitbarach said after this, Ta'aleh ha'emet min ha'aretz. May the earth sprout from the ground. May it rise from the earth. As it says in the verse, Emet me'eretz titzmach. It says also at the end, Emet me'eretz titzmach, may the truth sprout from the earth. Meaning what? That the truth seemed to come back from the ground. Hashem Yitbarach threw the Emet to the ground, and yet the truth, Hashem Yitbarach said, okay, get up. What's going on here? Why did Hashem Yitbarach need to throw the Emet to the ground and then need to lift up the Emet? And if it's lifting up the Emet, is it the same Emet that he threw? So let's go into it. Nimtza lichora, Rabbi Natan begins to see and he begins to notice. At first glance, according to the opinion of Emet, of truth, the midah of Emet, the world should not have been created, right? Rabbi Natan says. The Emet says Hashem Yitbarach do not create the world. But what? The essential etzem emet amito, if you go down to the deepest point of the truth, which is the emet amito, the truth of all truths, because Rabbeinu seems to make a distinction. There's the emet, there's the truth, which we discussed earlier. There's an emet according to each and every person's level. Each and every person has a truth that is associated with him and him only, that is not true with anyone else. Your truth, it could be to serve Hashem Yitbarach to do 45 minutes of Yitbodedut. For a person's other truth, it could be to do an hour and a half. Each and every person's truth is different and unique to him. But Rabbi Natan's saying that there's an etzem ha'emet lamito. If you go deep down, there's a truth of truth that beholds to all.
Does emet change over time though? Because as someone becomes
for sure
more, right?
Your emet is going to be different if you're growing tomorrow than it is yesterday.
Right, that's really good.
For example, you begin to do new avodat Hashem, you begin to go to the mikveh more often. Your emet is going to be changing now because you took upon yourself the consistency to do something different for a longer period of time. You know, for example, you start doing Yitbodedut for 20 minutes and then you begin to say, I'm going to add 10 more minutes on my Yitbodedut. And you stuck with this for a week. Your new emet for now has become 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, of course the emet changes for each and every individual. But there's an emet lamito, there's a truth of truths that is specific to everyone. And this emet lamito is one truth. It's an emet lamito that cannot be refuted. So look what Rabbi Natan says. He says, if you go down to the deepest truth of truth, what is it? Hashem Yitbarach be'atzmo. It's Hashem Himself. And it's certain that after we see that Hashem Yitbarach created the world, because He didn't listen to the emet, He threw the emet to the ground and He said, okay, let a new emet sprout. We're going to see what that means. We see that the world was created, which means what? That Hashem Yitbarach did not abide by the emet, by the simple truth. He did not abide by the emet. So what? This emet that Hashem Yitbarach did not listen to, we see from this that Hashem Yitbarach created the world. It's certain that Hashem Yitbarach did not create the world according to the emet. He created the world according to the emet lamito, according to the truth of truth, the highest point of truth, which is Hashem Himself. Hashem didn't listen to anyone except for what He knew was best. So what? What does this all mean? Rabbi Natan continues. But the truth of truths is what? Shel Hashem Yitbarach, of our God, amok v'norav v'niskam me'od. This truth of truths is very deep and awesome and very exalted. Because to try to understand the depth of God's thoughts are impossible. We say Hashem's thoughts are very deep. So, to that the point that even the emet itself, meaning those angels which correspond to this midah of emet, which we know are Azah and Azael, It's brought down in the Zohar Kadosh, these two angels which came to Hashem Yitbarach and said, Hashem Yitbarach, do not create the world. We're going to see later. These two angels represent what? They represent the Emet of Hashem. They represent the truth. You know what the truth is? Go to the Torah. It says in the Torah that one who does not keep Shabbat, skila or whatever, or one who does not keep Yom Kippur, karet. All these things, this is an Emet. You know what I mean? You do kasher, tameh. There's the kasher, that which is proper, that which you can eat, and then there's that which is not. It's taref. It's not proper to eat. There's pasul, that which is forbidden, and there's mutar. You know what I mean? There's all these things. There's these corresponding elements. That which is true, that which is sheker. So when you go to the element of the Torah, the very simple pshat element, the halacha at its level is emet. You read Shulchan Aruch, it's emet. Because why? It's giving you do this wrong, here's this punishment. Or do this because the Torah says this. It's very, it makes things black and white. And of course we need to operate at that level because the world is created with the word Bereshit. The word Bereshit starts with the letter Bet. Bet has two connotations. It means there's machloket. There's opposite sides. Zeh u'mat zeh. One opposes the next. The impurity opposes the purity. You know? You do this wrong, you're going to get this punishment. You do this right, you're going to get this reward. You honor your parents, your day shall be lengthened. But you do something wrong in the Torah, there's a punishment written in the Torah. Meaning that there's this balance and there's this opposing force that is constantly at battle. And this is the Emet of the Torah. This is what it says in the Kabbalah, what Rabbi נחman teaches us in lesson 11 of Likutei Halachot. This is the Gemara, the Halacha. Gemara and Halacha, or Mishnah, specifically Mishnah. There's Shisha Sidra Mishnah, there's 6 orders of Mishnah, six main sections of Mishnah that discuss certain subjects within each section. And of course they correspond to Kasher Pasul, Tahor Tameh, and of course the other one, Mutar and Asur. I forget the words that correspond. But there's these 6. And these 6 represent the Emet of the world, the 6 days of the world. But there's an Emet Lamito if you go deep down, and that's Shabbat Kodesh. That's the Nekudat Emet, that's the point of truth. That is Emet Lamito, that is the truth of truth that only Hashem Yitbarach knows. And Rabbi Natan says it at the beginning of this Likutei Halachot. What is it? Lekarev velo lerachek. To draw someone close and not push someone away. That's the Emet Lamito. So even when the Torah dictates something to you, that it says, you do this wrong, there's no teshuvah for it. For example, when the Zohar says for certain sins that there's no teshuvah, that seems like an emet. But the emet lamito is that even if that's written in the Torah, that actually you have to go down to the point and say, Hashem Yitbarach, I'm still drawn close. The emet lamito is that even if Hashem Yitbarach rejects you, He still wants you. You see what we're talking about here? It's more that the Torah, its foundational element of emet, seems like sometimes if you do something wrong, there's a rejection, and if you do something right, there's an embrace. But deep down, the emet lamito goes way further. It's a Torah that comes from before Bereshit. Bereshit has the letter Bet, right? But why didn't the Torah start with the letter Aleph? The Arizal writes in this week's Parashat, literally on Parashat Bereshit, on his Chidushim, he writes that the Inyan of Bet is the world of Beriah, it's the world of where things begin to, the evil begins to dwell. Meaning it's the source of where evil stems from. Where all judgments stem from Beriah. But in the world of Atzilut, which is the world of oneness of Hashem Yitbarach, starts with the letter Aleph, Atzilut, nearness. Over there's no evil. It's complete oneness. It's a Torah that embraces everything. Even if you fall to a certain place, there's no despair. You see what we're talking about here? It's a Torah that comes from it's a Torah that shows you that the word, even Bereshit, that there's a chesed in there. That is emet lamito. That even if you fall into sins of the Torah, that the Torah says that Hashem Yitbarach doesn't want you for anymore, that even deep down, from there Hashem Yitbarach still wants you. That's the Torah we're trying to delve at right now. And that's the midah the world was created through. Because Rabbi Natan's saying, he's saying what? There's no way the world was created through the emet, because Hashem Yitbarach threw the emet to the ground. So it must be the emet lamito that He sprouted from the earth. The truth of truth. Meaning Hashem Yitbarach decided that He will not found the world on the midah of emet, but only on emet lamito. Meaning the truth of truth, which is what? That I am Hashem Yitbarach, and that no matter where you go, I'm still with you.
Does that mean, in general, for example, like Halacha says to give Maser, and you give more than Maser? let's say. Is that what it's saying? Like more?
It's
Like halacha is like basic, like okay, we follow this, but you have a choice to do more. You know? Is that like
that. I wouldn't even say that's the Emet Lamito. I think the Emet Lamito specifically applies to a place where you do not apply it to the halacha. Meaning, for example, deep down, you do not think the Torah applies to you. For example, a person who, God forbid, gets tattoos. He went against the Torah. Something wrong. So, a person might say, Hashem Yitbarach doesn't want me. I'm very far from this. I'm very far from Hashem Yitbarach. Or a person does something wrong. He doesn't keep Shabbat. Hashem Yitbarach doesn't want me. But don't think for 1 second that Hashem Yitbarach created the world with this midah, because we know that Hashem Yitbarach threw the Emet to the ground. The Emet is that what? When it says in the Torah, I don't know, a certain punishment for something. Like what we talked about. That a karet for a person who doesn't keep Yom Kippur. A strict punishment for a person who doesn't keep Yom Kippur. A person might say to himself, because I don't keep Yom Kippur, Hashem Yitbarach doesn't apply to me. I don't keep the one Chag, the one Shabbat, Shabbaton, the thing that Hashem Yitbarach, the most important holiday in all of the entire year, I don't keep. Hashem Yitbarach doesn't want me. The Emet La'amito is that actually no. Hashem Yitbarach still wants you, and He still desires your avodat Hashem from this small place that you're in. Which is a crazy concept, because this is very untraditional in the way the tzaddikim have been teaching us the Torah. Truth is, what people don't understand is that Zohar already was preaching this from long ago. We know the Zohar is founded on one inyan, one word, ahava, love. We know Rabbi Akiva's students passed away because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Things that which we're suffering from today because we cannot seem to get around the fact that we cannot judge Jews positively. A Jew doesn't keep Shabbat, we cannot find the good within it. Things that are, of course, difficult to do in practice, but things that we need to apply to the best of our ability. Because for thousands of years, we've been suffering because of sinat chinam. We know that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of sinat chinam. And it says that what? The inyan of sinat chinam is equivalent to all the 3 sins of avodah zarah, shfichut damim, and gilui arayot. So if sinat chinam is such an important thing to avoid, how is it that we continue to fall in it? Which means it's the most important thing to work on. Rabbi נחman's most famous Torah, know that you have to find the good within each and every person, and even within the Rasha Gamo, the complete Rasha, you have to find the good within him. And by doing this, he's no longer Rasha. Doesn't mean to say that the bad that he's doing is not bad. That's not okay. Of course there's bad and there's good. There's opposites. But it means to kind of push that aside and say, Hashem Yitbarach, I'm willing to ignore that for a second to focus on what He does good. I'm not saying the bad doesn't exist, but I'm going to suffocate the bad so much to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. By only finding the good. Meaning what? Even when a person commits sins and sins and sins and sins and sins, that the tzaddik specifically, because this is his main avodah, he's going to find within a person nekudot tovot until those sins are no longer there. Something that is tremendous, that is unique to very great tzaddikim, because they know how to go deep down within the person and to find the nekudot tovot. Hashem Yitbarach, he still wears a kippah. Wait, Hashem, you might not wear a kippah, but he's honest with you. Hashem Yitbarach, he tucks it in his tzitzit. Hashem Yitbarach, he wore tefillin 3 weeks ago. These inyanim, these things that we try to find within individuals, we have no idea what they do in the heavens. That's the Emet La'amito we're talking about. The Torah of Azamra of Rabbi נחman's Torah of lesson 282 of Likutei Moran, to find the good within each and every Jew, this is the foundation of Emet La'amito. That's the truth of truth we're talking about. Because of course, at one level of truth, the person isn't keeping Shabbat, okay? It's against the halacha. A person who doesn't keep Shabbat cannot even open up a bottle of wine. That's not mebushal. You know what I'm saying? That's emet, according to the halacha. But emet la'amito is that he still has a nekudah within him. He still keeps Shabbat for 12 hours when he's sleeping.
The fact that he came to the Shabbat table.
The fact that he came to the Shabbat table. The fact that he's coming to listen to Kiddush. You know, all these inyanim that we have to kind of separate ourselves, because this has been the way of the Jewish people for thousands of years. And we've continued to struggle to understand this concept. Rabbi Akiva's students, 24,000 students, died because of sinat chinam, because of jealousy between one another. Until Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes out and says, what did he say? Anan b'chavivuta tal yamirta. We are dependent on love. Meaning the only reason why this chabura, this friendship, This chavraya, literally called the friends. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's group was not called the yeshiva. It was called chavraya, the friends. You know why? Because the main thing is dependent on love. Everything is dependent on love. Ahava. Avat chinam. To find the nekudot tovot within another individual. This is the main thing, the main avodat Hashem. Because we see the entire world was created through this concept. And we're going to connect full circle the luchot. What does it mean? The Torah ends with the Nekol Yisrael, that Moshe did this before the eyes of all the Jewish people. And what does that have to do with that Moshe broke the luchot? What's the connection? And then it starts with Bereshit bara Elokim with Safet Tevot Emet. But we see here that the Bereshit bara Elokim, that when Hashem Yitbarach is sealing the first words of the Torah with the last letters of which spell out the word Emet, it's not just any Emet. It's Emet La'amito. It's the truth of truths, which is at the highest point. And that's Hashem Yitbarach himself. That's the deepest kavanah of Hashem. So the Midrash says, when Azan and Azael came to Hashem Yitbarach at the beginning of time, these two angels, which represented the midah of truth, they came to Hashem Yitbarach and said like this, Ma enosh ki tizkerenu. What's the point of recalling man and bringing man into the world if he's going to commit sin? Ma enosh ki tifkedenu. What's the task of this person? There's no point in bringing this person. He's going to only do more damage than he's going to do fixing. Hashem Yitbarach threw these angels to the earth. You know what it says in the Zohar HaKadosh? It says in the Holy Zohar, we're just reading this in Parashat Bereshit, that Hashem Yitbarach took these angels, threw them to the earth, Azan Azael, and when they got thrown to the earth, they sinned with women. These angels, which were initially on a very high place, on high, in the heaven, got thrown to the earth, they became something completely different, and they began to have tava. And they began to sin with the women. From this union came the Nephilim. The Nephilim were these giants that then occupied Eretz Yisrael. Og Melech HaBashan is one of these Nephilim. Of course, the Nephilim are... Why Nephilim? Because there comes the word Nofel, which means to fall. Why? Because their ancestors fell from heaven. So Azan and Azael are truth, but that truth doesn't last. And Hashem Yitbarach throws that truth to the ground. And what? A new truth sprouts from the ground. What's that Emet? What's that Emet Namito? We're going to talk about is the tzaddik Emet. It's the true tzaddik. Why? Because the true tzaddik's task, his entire goal, is to find the nekudat tova within each and every Jew. The word Bereshit, it says in the Zohar HaKadosh, is a play, Tikkun Zohar, it's a play on the words two words. It's a play on two words. Rosh Bait, the head of the house. You know who's the head of the house? You know who's the one in charge of the house of this world? The tzaddik. It says in the Gemara Brachot that Hashem Yitbarach created the world only ella letzavot lezeh, only to accompany this person. Who's this person? The Chachamim say the tzaddik. Which means what? The world was created simply because of the tzaddik. Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi נחman, Rabbi Shimon, the Ari HaKadosh, the Bashatot, they got up and they said like this. Hashem Yitbarach, don't listen to Azan Azael. We guarantee that we'll fix the world with our Torah. We guarantee that no matter where a Jew falls, we'll find the Torah from that place. No matter where a Jew falls, we can still find the Torah and a nekudah from that place. We can still find the nitzot from that place. And Hashem Yitbarach said, done deal. He signed the world. That's what the Midrash says, Emet me'eretz titzmach. And Emet sprouted up from the earth. Which Emet is that? It's the tzaddik. The tzaddik is initially very low, but he shows you that the Torah is from the lowest to the highest place. So look what he says. He continues. And we're going to continue on this inyan of the luchot and how beautiful this chidush is of Rabbi Natan. It's something nobody's ever heard of. It's something incredible. It's very special. Look what he says. These malachim, which represent the trait of truth, they did not understand the true intention of Hashem. They did not get to the true da'at of Hashem Yitbarach. To the point where they did not understand it, so that they accused Hashem Yitbarach of doing something wrong, that he should not create the world. And they claim to Hashem Yitbarach that the world is completely full of falsehood. Don't create the world, because the truth cannot endure falsehood. Hashem Yitbarach eno chafet be'emet kazeh. But Rabbi Natan says Hashem Yitbarach did not desire a truth like this. You know the truth that the thousands of tzaddikim have been doing for the past 100 of years? That worked for one point, but now it doesn't work anymore. The truth of telling a Jew that because he doesn't keep Shabbat, he's going to get this punishment anymore, and telling it to him like this to his face, it doesn't work anymore. You might think it works, but it doesn't go to the nekudah of the neshama. It doesn't hit anymore the way it does. Now, of course, there's yirat shamayim. Of course, there's fear of punishment. This all works. It all works in balances. We have to engage in the world as if we know there's a punishment. We cannot engage in the world as if everything's a free-for-all. But it means to understand that no matter where you go, and there's no such thing as despair.
It does affect people, though, no?
What?
Like, I personally have seen people where like, they do, let's say, Navilan, and they think like, okay, Hashem's mad at me anyways, I might as well do this and that, and then you find them very, very places.
Right.
It does affect, like, no?
Of course it affects, because they don't believe that there's an emet lamito. The problem is we've been told for all our lives that there's only an emet. You do this thing wrong, you get this punishment. Things are black and white. Things are not black and white. Now, according to the way we have to live the world, we have to live as if it's black and white. Meaning that when we perform the halacha, we have to have girat shamayim to the point where Hashem yitbarach, I'm going to perform the halacha because I know that there's this punishment involved. Later, you get to the point where that slowly becomes a yirat ha'romemut. It becomes an awe of Hashem's awesomeness. It no longer becomes a yirat ha'onesh. There's levels of fear. Rabbi נחman says in Likutei Halachot, there's yirat ha'onesh, there's fear of punishment, but higher than yirat ha'onesh is yirat ha'romemut. It's the fear of God's awe. It's having an awe for Hashem where you're like, Hashem, I don't even want to do anything against you because I'm so much in awe of you. You're so awesome. Everything is in your capability. You know? And you do everything for me. And then it transforms into love, ahava. You know? The balance between yirah and ahava, Rabbi נחman teaches us that you cannot get to ahava without going through yirah first. So of course there's an inyan of yirah. But which real yirah are we talking about? The yirat ha'romemut. Let's get to the fear of God's awesomeness. The fear of punishment is the lowest level of yirah. The Zohar says it's not L'shem Shamayim. Now Rabbi נחman says you first have to go through there. So don't think just because it's not L'shem Shamayim, lo lishma ba lishma, Rabbi נחman says. Even though it's not L'shem Shamayim, even though it's not for the sake of heaven, then you're not performing the mitzvot because it's for God's sake. You're doing it actually because you're scared. It's good at one level and then you'll get to the next level. But Rabbi נחman says, don't think for 1 second this is the only way it works. We have to understand that this is the way Hashem created the world. Bereshit, we engage in a world that exists again along this premise, meaning that what? When you do something wrong, there is a punishment, there is Gehinam, there is Gan Eden, but that is not the main kavanah of Hashem.
What does yirat shamayim mean in the sense, like, you should be afraid of Hashem, or you just said not to. Like, not to do something because you're scared. Like, we're going to get to that point, but...
It's Rabbi נחman says when you start off, it always starts like this. Yirat ha'onesh is part of the process. Fear of God, fear of punishment. You do something wrong, there's this wrong. Schar ve'onesh, you know what I mean? You do something right, you get this reward. That is the base level. Later, the more you begin to enter the Avodat Hashem and begin to understand the reality of the world, you begin to see that this is not as black and white anymore. You're no longer performing the mitzvah because of yirat ha'onesh. As long as you continue doing it, it becomes more of Hashem yitbarach, I don't want to disappoint you. Or Hashem yitbarach, I see how awesome you are, how everything is laid out before me, how incredible everything you do is. I don't feel, I don't have the guts and the audacity to perform something against you. It becomes the yirat ha'romemut. And there's levels, of course. There's levels upon levels of yirah. The Zohar says, itira v'itira. There's fear and there's fear. One fear above the next. Rabbi נחman says, the fear of Hashem yitbarach, yirah, fears Hashem. What does that even mean? That fear of God has fear of God. That yirah has fear of Hashem. It makes no sense to understand this. But there's levels, you know? And of course, when you get that, we transform to ahava. So,
what about those who treat the Torah as like a menu? Like picking and choosing what's suitable or just convenient? And
like that?
Yeah.
That's just a low level of that. That's because they haven't been introduced to the real emet of the Torah, that they do whatever. That's exactly the opposite of
At the same time,
emet.
there's like if we say okay, it's a menu, and like you're holding at a certain level, you can't order the whole menu.
You're right. You're holding at a certain level.
So.
But this is exactly the point. We all do that at some level. We all do that at some level because nobody keeps the Torah 100%. Nobody keeps the Torah 100% to the highest degree. Nobody. So what? Because you're not giving the Torah 100%, you're not giving the Torah? No. Hashem Yitbarach, like we just talked about in lesson 112, everything that's dependent on, the entire world is dependent on the Emet. But which Emet? Lelech b'derech Emet lefi madrigato. To go according to the Emet that is at your level. Meaning what? That you can only handle so much. I can only do this much. I cannot keep Shabbat a full Shabbat right now. Imagine trying to tell a person who's been secular his entire life, who has nothing to do with religion, something's happened to him immediately, he's not going to keep Shabbat in 1 second. At least keep a few hours of Shabbat. Those few hours are keeping part of the menu, let's say, right? But it's his truth. Meaning that you cannot expect more from him. As long as he's being honest with himself, where he stands, then that's what God wants. And of course, pushing the boundaries, getting from level to level to level. It doesn't mean to make excuses. Everything depends on how honest you are. This is not for a person making excuses. This Torah is specifically for a person who doesn't make excuses, who wants to push the boundaries, but yet at the same time understands that what? There's a balance in the world. I cannot do everything at once. I'm not superhuman. Relax. The Avodat Hashem that I want to do, chill. Take it easy. Le'at, le'at, little by little. Rabbi Nachman's last words. Le'at, le'at. Little by little. As they were putting him on his deathbed, Rabbi Nachman told the students, le'at, le'at. Those weren't words to tell him, relax, I'm sick. Those were words for the final generation. Slowly, slowly. We get inspired by Torah and mitzvot. We get inspired by certain miracles that happen in our lives. We get inspired by certain things that Hashem reveals to us. That stuff becomes an immediate attraction and a magnet, saying to what? Okay, I want to go and attach myself to Hashem. I want to keep Shabbat. I want to do mitzvot, masim tovim. I want to mix niyut. I want to cover my hair. I want to do this, that. Rabbeinu is saying, relax. Pen yarsu lirot et Hashem. Don't breach the boundary. Take it easy for a second. Understand where you stand. You're not Moshe Rabbeinu yet. Hashem Yitbarach reveals to you as if you're Moshe Rabbeinu when you get that inspiration to show you that you can accomplish great things. But you have to understand that there's a balance in the world. You don't have the kli yet. You need to take everything according to your kli, your vessel. And that kli is determined by how much you've done. Because you're far, you can only handle so much. So Hashem Yitbarach is saying, Emet. Gather to that truth in which you are standing right now. What we were talking about, the menu. You know? Not every person keeps the entire Torah. But as long as you're honest with Hashem Yitbarach and where you stand, Hashem Yitbarach, I may not be keeping everything, and you come to Hashem, you say, Hashem, I may not be doing everything properly, but Hashem Yitbarach, I yearn to do things properly. I yearn to be shomer einayim. I yearn to guard my mouth. I yearn not to speak curse words. When you say this before Hashem Yitbarach says, okay, you're conscious. When you do a deen down here, there's no deen up above. We know that when you judge yourself down here at bottom Torah, Telet Vav of Likutei Moran, lesson 15 of Likutei Moran, from the Midrash, from the Gemara, when there's din lemata and din lemala, there's no din up there. When you judge yourself over what you do, you prevent judgment from up there because you already did what you need to do. The only reason why there's judgment up there is because you're not doing it. Why do you think Rabbi נחman is so emphatic about Hibodedut? Because it's the main thing Hashem Yitbarach wants. Be honest with Hashem. You cannot be honest with Hashem expressing your needs and the true kavanah when you're doing an amidah. I'm sorry. Even if you try to say Shema Kolenu, how long are you going to be in Shema Kolenu for? Everybody says, but can't you do Ibadudut Shema Kolenu? Yes, it's a form of Ibadudut. But every single day to go to the same room for the same amount of time every single day and to clock in the hours telling Hashem Yitbarach, I'm present, that's not the same way. You're establishing a fourth tefillah that is specifically between you and God. An intimacy between you and Hashem that exists only in this time. It's a Kodesh Kodashim between you and Hashem that only exists in Ibadudut. Nowhere else. So when you come to Hashem Yitbarach at the end of the day and you say, Hashem Yitbarach, today I got angry at my parents, I should have not got angry. Today I said a curse word, I should not have said it. Today Hashem Yitbarach, I said this wrong. Today Hashem Yitbarach, I looked the opposite direction I should have. Today Hashem Yitbarach, this. When you continue to do this, Hashem Yitbarach begins to open up new things to you. And He begins to give you access to actually change those things. That's the beauty. When you're conscious, that's when you begin to fix. If you do not know what you're doing wrong in the first place, good luck. That's a hastara, shebetoch hastara. If you're doing a sin that you don't even know you're sinning, Rabbi נחman said it's almost impossible to find Hashem from that place. Almost. Of course, he says within that place there's Hashem Yitbarach. You just need to someone needs to reveal the Torah to that person. But it's very difficult. Imagine a person doesn't know he's committing something wrong. Look how dangerous that is. Doesn't know he's doing something wrong. He will never be able to change that because in his eyes there's nothing wrong to fix in the first place. So his entire life he's going to go not fixing anything.
That means we have to know like every single halacha like perfectly.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to study halacha. Rabbi נחman is so makpid on saying Shulchan Aruch chok v'lo yavor. Every single day study Shulchan Aruch chok v'lo yavor. This is why this Torah is not an excuse. When Rabbi נחman and Rabbi Natan are coming to teach us about this chesed of the Torah and teach us about Emet and that no matter where a person goes, that there's a chesed of Hashem that is in that place, he's not coming to tell you, okay, no matter what you're fine. Just do whatever you want. This Torah is founded on the idea of Emet. But even when that Emet doesn't apply, there's an Emet Amito. So, yeah.
Let's say someone takes on doing their like cheshbon and nefesh, but within starting that, can't you also get into like a black hole of negatively judging yourself?
You're right. Meaning, don't do it too much to the point where it makes you into depression. You have to judge yourself. Part of the thing is you have to do tochacha. You have to rebuke yourself over where you're not standing. That's what we call brokenheartedness. When you're brokenhearted over something, it's because you know you're missing and you're deficient in that place. You're lacking in that degree. When I'm brokenhearted over the fact that, for example, I don't guard my eyes properly, I'm saying, that's because I recognize I'm not there yet. So there has to be a brokenheartedness because that's the consciousness. The consciousness sometimes has to come through brokenheartedness in a place of recognition, of recognizing that you're not in the place where you should be. But Rabbi נחman says, be very careful because that lev nishbar can easily turn into atvut, depression. There's a huge difference, Rabbi נחman says in Sichot Hara. Lev nishbar and atvut. Lev nishbar, a broken heart comes from the heart, which Rabbi נחman says is extremely precious before Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov said that there's nothing more shalem before Hashem, nothing more perfect before Hashem than a lev nishbar, a broken heart. Meaning a broken heart is the most perfect thing before Hashem. But Rabbi נחman says it's very easy to leave from brokenheartedness if you're too brokenhearted all the time to depression. That depression is like when a person goes to his dad and says, why did you do this to me? Or Hashem Yitbarach, he starts complaining against Hashem Yitbarach with starting to argue against his midot. Hashem Yitbarach, how could you do this? That anger stems from a depression. Whereas brokenheartedness is when you come to Hashem Yitbarach and you say, Hashem, I yearn to have done this more properly. Where am I in the world? You see how different it is? One comes from a place of anger and depression and saying, now I'm putting the responsibility on God. Versus one comes from the thing of saying, Hashem, where am I? I want to do your Ratzon, but it's like you're not even allowing me to. The differences, the magnitude are huge. It's totally different level. So Rabbi נחman says that atvut comes from the tchol, from the spleen, where the redness of the blood is. That spleen, the spleen where the blood is purified. The spleen. So it's where the damim are. It's where your anger is. Where the rawness of your nefesh abemit is. Your animal soul comes from. Huge difference. So probably what you're saying about lev nishbar. Rabbi נחman literally says, "Beforash and Likutei Moran, be careful not to be lev nishbar the entire day. Each and every person can contain lev nishbar according to how much he can contain it. One person's lev nishbar can be done for an hour and a half. One person can break his heart for an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day. For example, Rabbi נחman came to a person and told him, do it bodedut, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. For him, his lev nishbar was 2 hours. The rest of the day, 22 hours, you have to be besimcha. For another person, might not be able to contain 1 hour. It's 30 minutes of bodedut. So for him, the lev nishbar, maybe of those 30 minutes is 15 minutes. The other 15, he needs to be b'sameach. He needs to lift himself up and dance for 15 minutes of bodedut. I don't know. So each and every person, the hard part is finding out how much you can contain. When you begin to see that you're doing lev nishbar and it's starting to lead into depression, know that you're doing too much. Rabbi נחman says, if you want to know your lev nishbar was good, is once you follow your bodedut, if you're happy, then you know you did a good lev nishbar. If once you leave bodedut you feel relieved and you're sameach, then you know that your bodedut was very proper and your lev nishbar was good. So Rabbi נחman says, mitzvah gdoleh besimchat tamid. רק לקבוע לו שעה מיוחד. The only thing is that you need to set aside a unique hour during the day that you choose to speak to Hashem. Whatever that time is, you decide according to what you can contain. That's where each and every emet changes, you know? So continuing back to the inyan, and God willing, we'll finish this Likutei Halachot because it's really incredible. So look what he says here. That the what do you call it? Azan Azael, they accused Hashem Yitbarach and told Hashem Yitbarach, you should not create the world. Why? Because it's full of sheker, it's full of falsehood. And we said Hashem Yitbarach did not desire a truth like this. This truth wants to distance creation entirely. It wants to distance the Jewish people. You know what the perfect story for this is? The story of Acher, Elisha ben Avuya. We're not going to get so deep into the story, but there was a Chacham in the time of Gemara and Amora. It's actually at the time of Rabbi Akiva. So it's a Tana. This Tana, Elisha ben Avuya, famous story in the Gemara Chagiga, that him and three other Rabbanim, Rabbi Akiva, Ben Zoman, Ben Azai, entered Pardes. They entered this very high state of consciousness, this aliyat neshama in a sense. It was very close to Maseh Merkava, a very high Kabbalistic ascent with the soul, where they came before a perception of Hashem Yitbarach that was incredible. You know? You begin to see things of Hashem Yitbarach in the upper worlds that you do not have access to. So, they said a divine name of Hashem and they went up. Okay? Up there, Ben Zoma and Ben Azai got affected, one of them died, one of them went absolutely nuts and crazy. Acher, Elisha ben Avuya came down with heresy, atheism. Crazy to think like this, but it's crazy how it went down. But he goes up, he sees Hashem Yitbarach, he sees the throne, and he sees an angel sitting on the throne, and he comes out saying, there's two authorities in heaven. It makes no sense. It says in the Torah that only one person sits on the throne in heaven, and yet he finds an angel by the name of Metat sitting in heaven. So how is it that this angel can sit on the throne when it explicitly states that there's only one authority? So he comes down denying Hashem. And he said that there's two authorities, there's two powers. Entire story how the Gemara went down when the angel encounters Elisha ben Avuya. Rabbi Akiva is the only one who nichnas b'shalom, yetza b'shalom. He goes in peace, enters in peace, he exits in peace. When Elisha ben Avuya comes down, he completely denies and throws off the entire yoke of the Torah. Breaks Shabbat, does everything. Went with women, etc. Rabbi Meir Balanes was the main student of Elisha ben Avuya, one of the main students. And he learned Torah from him. And he learned Torah from him before this happened. And he also learned Torah from him after it happened. When Elisha ben Avuya came down and threw off the yoke of the Torah and the Mitzvot, Rabbi Meir Balanes came to study from him. And all the Chachamim asked, how can you do this? How can you study from a heretic like this? Rabbi Meir Balanes said, I throw off the klipa, the shell, and I take the fruit. Meaning, I know what is tameh and what is ta'or of this person. That Rabbi Meir Balanes had a specific level that he understood what he could take and what he couldn't take. He was able to filter and to sift out. So, Elisha ben Avuya, you know what it says? He was such a Tamid Chacham, such a Tana, that it says about him that when he was teaching Rabbi Meir Balanes after he went off the path, he was standing on a horse on Shabbat Kodesh and riding the horse on Shabbat throughout the city. And as he was teaching Rabbi Meir Balanes Torah, he counted the steps subconsciously of how many amot they had just did. 2,000 amot. And when they had reached 2,000 amot outside the city limits, he told Rabbi Meir Balanes, this is where you stop. I can go further, but you can't. And Rabbi Meir Balanes comes to him and says, wait up. Rebbe, come back. You can still do tshuva. And what does Elisha ben Avuya say? He says, I cannot. Because from heaven, I heard a voice say, Shuvu banim shovelim chutz me'acher. Return all the wayward children, return all the lost children, except for Acher. Who's Acher? It was a name given to Elisha ben Avuya by a prostitute, essentially. Acher was now the name of Elisha ben Avuya. And what? Hashem Barach, or a name from heaven, or a certain voice from heaven came, and Elisha ben Avuya heard this as this was happening. And he said, what? There's no way I have tshuva. The Emet of the Torah state that there's no way I come back. Hashem Yitbarach decreed it himself. Hashem Yitbarach said himself that there's no way I come back from this. Everybody can return except for Acher. What Acher didn't have was this Torah. That the Nekudav Acher is not Acher. All you need is a Nekudah. You know what separates Acher and Echad? The entire blemish of Acher. Look at this chidush. It's incredible. The entire blemish of Acher, Elisha ben Abuya, Acher literally means the other one, the other person. It's such a bad name that you cannot even refer to by his name. It's such a derogatory name. So Acher, the main problem with Acher was that he said Shnei Reshuyotem, there's two powers. He said there's two gods, essentially. The only way to turn Acher into something called Echad is 1 point. The letter Resh can turn into a Dalet by 1 point. You know how? Because the bar, if you spell out the letter Dalet, if you look at the shape of the letter Dalet, it's a bar that is horizontal and a vertical bar. But the vertical bar has an extending piece right here that extends past the horizontal bar. So the Dalet looks like this essentially, and it goes like this, right? But there's a piece that stands at the outer edge that separates it from the Resh. The Resh is completely connected. There's no extending piece past the vertical bar. If you look at the letter Dalet, look at it and look at the letter Resh. The Resh is one connected piece, and the Dalet is two pieces. It's a bar that is vertical, that is horizontal and vertical. This way to transform Acher into Echad is 1 point. It's one nekudah. Rabbi נחman teaches us that's a tzaddik. What's a tzaddik? The tzaddik, when you attach yourself to the tzaddik, you easily avoid heresy and you attach yourself to that which is echad, to the oneness of Hashem. What is heresy? It's the idea that you do not know, you're not sure. It's the idea of multiple. It's sheker. Acher, when he said Shnei Reshuyotem, there's two powers. The way to transform Acher is into echad by that one nekudah. Which nekudah? The tzaddik Moshe. You know what Rabbi נחman teaches us in lesson 34 of Likutei Halachot? There's a tzaddik that exists in each and every individual, which Rabbi Natan says here, that only each and every individual possesses, that is unique to him. And the Emet la'amito is the only thing that can get to this person. Because if you say Emet, if you only go according to the world as the Emet, you'll never reach the deep inner point of yourself. Because you can only reach that inner point when you get attacked sometimes, when you go through machloket, when you suffer under falls and descents. Acher, who fell through this descent and this heresy, he had a way back. And Rabbi Meir Baranes actually did tshuva, he raised his neshama. But Rabbi Meir Baranes is the sign that there's no such thing as despair in the world. No matter where you fall, even Acher, even a person who denies Hashem Yitbarach, he has a way back. What Rabbi נחman teaches us, and a statement in Likutei Moran that is a statement that there is no going out on. It's not a famous phrase and quote. Rabbeinu said that he said in passing like this. He wrote it in his book. En shum yeush ba'olam kal. There's no such thing as giving up in the world at all. No matter where you go, even to Gehenna, you're still away from there. Hashem Yitbarach is in Gehenna. So we see here that the Emet la'amito prevails over everything. And it's the Emet la'amito that is the world that the world is founded on. So look what he says here. So look what Rabbi Natan says. Hashem Yitbarach doesn't desire this truth that brings people away from Hashem. This is why we see sometimes a person bring a person away from his friend. Why? By telling him, oh, you broke Shabbat, you're going to do this. You know those people, they do that a lot. They don't understand the balance of Ahava and Yira. But look what Rabbeinu teaches us. He says like this. Why do these people do this? Because it seems to them, al pi ha'emet shelo, according to their truth, that their friend is straying from the path of truth. But what did we say earlier? One's truth differs from another's truth. The emet la'amito is that no matter which truth you stand in, there's a way to Hashem. So that what? This person makes a mistake to think that he can apply his truth to this man's truth. Just because a guy doesn't eat badat in Yerushalayim doesn't mean he's not doing tshuva. Doesn't mean he's not close to Hashem. You know? So look what he says. Because it seems to him that according to the truth of his friend, that he's straying from his truth. From this, all the machloket in the world stems from this concept. Sometimes a person accuses himself of the emet that he stands in and because of this he falls far from Hashem, because of his own truth. Because he feels deep within himself that his truth is very blemished. He's very far from Hashem. Half the menu we talked about earlier, a tenth of the menu. He only does one thing in the Torah. So he feels as if he's not worthy of the Torah. He does nothing for Hashem. This is the big sheker. Rabbi Natan said because of this he gives up on himself and he goes further from Hashem. And all of this stems from one accusation. Which accusation? The two angels that got up before Hashem and said, Hashem, do not create the world because the world is full of sheker. You know what sheker that is? The sheker that each and every person thinks that because he doesn't do the entire Torah, that he doesn't have a piece of Emet, or he doesn't have a nekudah of Hashem. There's nothing more false than this. All the kitrugim, all the accusations that stem from the beginning of creation come from this point. Hashem does not desire a truth like this. He threw it from upon his face and he threw it to the earth. He hated this emet. He threw that emet to the earth. He threw his own chotam, but he created a new seal. He threw his own seal, but he created a new one. Because God desires the truth that draws close and doesn't distance a person. Because specifically in a world like this, full of falsehood, in a world full of confusion, in a world full of things happening around us that we have no idea what's flying, things in Israel that's happening right now, the disunity that was happening before this happened, what's going on? We all have questions. How can Hashem let this happen, this, that? We do not understand anything at all. All we understand is one thing. Hashem chafetz be'emet amito. Hashem desires the truth of truths. And what is that? That he wants us to draw close. Forget it. He wants nothing else except for us to draw close. He wants the Chiloni, he wants the Dati, he wants this person, he wants the Sfaradi, he wants the Ashkenazi, he wants every single person on the face of the earth from the top to the bottom to draw close to Hashem. Be'achdut, be'ahava. So the main point gets to this idea that what? Specifically in this world which is filled with falsehood, when a person merits and fights, because you have to fight to do it. You cannot be a little princess and walk around like a little everything that's handed to you and think that it's going to be brought to you this Emet Lamito. You have to fight for it. There's going to be a lot of machloket, a lot of people, even people that look like religious people, they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you that you should not act like this, you should not study this Torah. In Emet Lamito, you have to study Halacha and Gemara the way it is. Like if you do this, there's this punishment. There's going to be people telling you that. Aminatan says, ignore that completely. Because yes, that's true, but that's not the entire truth. That's just one point. The main kavanah is the Emet Lamito. That no matter what, a person needs to fight and to get to that nikudat ha'emet lamito, that point of the truth of truth that exists within each and every individual. That what? Hashem Yitbarach wants you from where you are. From each and every person's emet, Hashem Yitbarach wants you. That's the emet lamito. So what did he say? And this is the most precious thing before Hashem. It's for this reason the entire world is founded on emet. Which emet? The emet lamito. And now we understand the luchot. Because why? Because when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchot, when he saw the Jewish people sitting with a golden calf, look how insane this chidush is, this novelty. Only Rabbi Natan brings this down. According to the Torah and the luchot which he was bringing down, what did it write on the luchot? Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeticha me'etzitani bet avadim. Lo yeh lecha elokim echachim al panai. No. All the 10 commandments, right? Which comprise of all the mitzvot of the Torah, of course. But I'm the God that took you out of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Do not have other gods upon my face. Already the first two luchot, the first two commandments of the luchot, we already broke when we did the Egel HaZahav. The Egel HaZahav was an act of Avodah Zarah in the Gemara. So what? The first two commandments of the luchot, which Moshe Rabbeinu was bringing down as a testimony for the Jewish people, we already broke the entire luchot from the first two. We already didn't even abide by the first two luchot. The first two, commandments. So Moshe Rabbeinu understood this, Rabbi Natan says. Look at and saying this chidushas. Moshe Rabbeinu understood that the first two commandments of the 10 luchot, the 10 commandments, were broken already before they were brought down. Why? Because Bnei Israel did the Yigel HaZahav. Because according to the Torah and the luchot, the Jewish people were determined, and the Gzar Din, the decree was what? Klaya, destruction. Because the first two commandments, they went completely off the rails. So imagine if Moshe Rabbeinu brings down the luchot and shows the entire Jewish people the luchot, now that they did this. That is the testimony for their destruction. That the luchot are the edut for their destruction. It is like the witness for their destruction. Imagine the service Moshe Rabbeinu would have done had he brought the luchot down. So look what he says. Because at pi ha'emet shel Torah Kedosha, we see that the Jewish people were nitchayevu kelaya, according to the truth of the Torah Kedosha. What is the truth? Do not follow God. This is the punishment. All the curses in the Torah. Don't follow God. This will rain upon you, the destruction of the temple, the this, the that. That's the Emet of the Torah, right? That's the Emet, not Emet Namito, the Emet. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw that according to the Emet of the Luchot, according to the Emet of the Torah Kedosha, we were decreed for destruction and death. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu decide to do? Moshe knew, and he perceived that God doesn't like this actually. Therefore, he threw the luchot which represent the emet. He threw the luchot which are the symbol of emet, of truth. Moshe Rabbeinu literally threw the emet to the earth, just like Hashem threw the emet at the beginning of time. He threw the emet to the earth, and he reinforced himself in prayer. Because he believed that it's impossible to understand Hashem Yitbarach's true knowledge, his true consciousness. Because God's thoughts are very deep and very big is Hashem's rachamim, and he doesn't desire he doesn't desire the destruction of the world. All God wants is the settlement of the world, the foundation of the world, for the world to go on. And we know the main part of the world is the Jewish people. Therefore Moshe Rabbeinu saw this. He reinforced himself in tefillah. He was successful, and Hashem Yitbarach forgave him because of Moshe Rabbeinu. Forgave the Jewish people. Salachti kidvarecha. I've forgiven you. Hashem Yitbarach literally writes is Vayomer Hashem salachti kidvarecha. Hashem says salachti kidvarecha. I have forgiven the Jewish people kidvarecha according to your word. Meaning what? The only reason why we are alive today is thanks to the tzaddik, who's the Emet Lamito. Thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu, who said what? Nobody understands Hashem. Even I don't understand Hashem. So I'm going to rely on that emunah, and I'm going to rely on Hashem's chesed that is above even the Bereshit of the Torah, even the bet of the Torah. I'm going to go all the way to what? Aleph. Aleph is one. It's an Emet Lamito that applies to all. See here the difference? Moshe Rabbeinu brought the inyan of the Emet Lamito within the bet, within this world, the bet, within conflict, within machloket. That's the chesed of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why it's impossible to attach yourself to Hashem without Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why it's impossible to be attached to Hashem without attaching yourself to the tzaddik. You know why? Because only the tzaddik can go this far. And only the tzaddik knows how far to go. Moshe Rabbeinu understood this when the entire world was established for destruction. What did Moshe Rabbeinu say? I don't care. I break the luchot. And what did it say in the Midrash? Yasher kochacha Moshe. Right is your strength, Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem Yitbarach applauded Moshe for this act. You know why? Because Hashem Yitbarach knew that Moshe Rabbeinu reached the sof of Hashem's kavanah. What? Hashem Yitbarach wants Bnei Israel's settlement. Hashem Yitbarach wants Bnei Israel's life, not their death. And this is what it says. That Hashem Yitbarach forgave the Jewish people kidvarecha, according to Moshe's word, thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu. The tzivah lifsosh luchot sheniyot, and Hashem Yitbarach commanded Moshe Rabbeinu to carve out a second pair of luchot, karishonim, just like the first ones. And that's what is what? That represents what? Ta'aleh emet min haaretz, emet min haaretz tzmach, a new emet sprouted from the earth. Which emet is that? The second luchot. The first broken luchot is the broken luchot of the emet, but the second luchot are just like the first ones. They're an entire Torah of its own, but it's much higher. We cannot live with the first luchot today. Even though it says that if the first luchot weren't broken, we would never forget the Torah Shabbat Peh, this, that, and they brought down in the Gemara. Nonetheless, the second luchot is what kept us alive, because that's the Emet Lamito. Even when you're broken, even when the world is broken, even when the luchot are broken, there's a new Torah from that place too. And that new Torah applies to each and every individual, no matter where he stands. And this is what it says. This is why it says, after Le'enei Kol Yisrael, after the words of Le'enei Kol Yisrael, the last words of the Torah, that Moshe Rabbeinu did this before the Jewish people, meaning he did what? He broke the luchot. What did the Torah start with? Bereshit bara Elokim. Safei tevot Emet. The last letters are Emet. Why? To teach us that a new Emet has sprouted. And that Emet is the Emet that Hashem Baruch wants all of us. So what? This is what it said in the Gemara. Look how awesome it is. Now we can understand everything in the Gemara. Hadan din emet lamito. What it said the Chachamim say. One who judges an emet, a din, a judgment, emet lamito, that is truthful to the highest truth. As if he becomes a partner with Hashem in the creation of the world. Now you understand why? Because the only way the world was created was because of the emet lamito. So when you judge an emet lamito, when you judge a din that is emet lamito, the truth that goes to the sof of the kavanah of Hashem, the end of God's intention, which draws a person close to Hashem and not far away, that you become a partner with Hashem in the creation of the world. It's thanks to you the world was created. So what? Now, this is what Rabbeinu says, and this is where we end off. Now you become a shutaf, a partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'maaseh Bereshit, within the creation of the world. Because the entire creation of the world happened through this concept. That Hashem Yitbarach took the simple emet, which was a very big accusation by these angels, and he completely threw it to the ground and created a new one from this, which is the emet lamito. And this is all thanks to Baruch Hashem and Tzaddik, who comes and takes who's a guarantor for the Jewish people and says, what? I'm willing to bring this emet lamito. We see this here in the final Torah. That's where we'll end off. We see this happening today. That today people still don't understand that the entire world surrounds around this concept around the Rosh Bait, the head of the house. We say the Rosh Devar Emet, the head of the words is Emet, the truth. Who's also at the head? It's the Rosh Bait, it's Tzaddik. Rabbeinu says in Likutei Halachot, Bereshit Rosh Bait. Bereshit is the head of the house. Bechinat Bala Bait Shel Olam. He's the Bala Bait of the entire world. He's the master of the household of the entire world. The world stands on him. Hanu Tzaddik Emet, meaning this true Tzaddik. Shua Yofi Ve'aper Shel Olam. By the way, this true Tzaddik is not 10, there's not 20 in the world. There's one. There's one true Tzaddik, and that Neshamat Moshe Rabbeinu. Shu Bechinat Yosef. And this represents Yosef HaTzadik. What does it say about Yosef? Yosef hu Hashalit hu Mashbir v'chule. Yosef is the ruler, he's the one who is providing in all of Egypt. Bechinat Rosh Bait, he's the Rosh Bait. Bala Bait Shel Olam. And what? Ki al yado, because it's through the Tzaddik. Kiyuma Bet HaMikdash, the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt. Kiyuma Batim V'adirot Shel Yisrael, and all the dwelling places and the house of the Jewish people are founded thanks to the Tzaddik and the Rosh Bait. And when you increase the name of the Tzaddik, by increasing the name of this Tzaddik and his teachings in the world, who represents the head of the house, through this the eyes of the Jewish people are opened. Our consciousness is opened. Now when it says Le'enei Kol Yisrael, our eyes are open. How do we open our eyes? The last word of the Torah, Bereshit, the first word of the Torah, Rosh Bait. When we increase the name of the Rosh Bait, when we spread the teaching of the Rosh Bait. This is what it says, Bereshit, the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, last word of the Torah, Le'enei Kol Yisrael. Take the first and last letter, Bet, and the last letter of the Torah is Lamed, Lev. This is the heart of the world, the Tzaddik. And I'll finish off with a story. One time, one of the students of Rabbi נחman, one of the famous students who focused on the structure of prayer on Tefillah so very much. He was a master of prayer, this student. It says he used to scream at his limbs to the point where he controlled every single one of his limbs. His heart, his eyes, his sinews were upon the control of his words. Rabbi נחman gave him the secret. He said, I want you to do bodedut, but speak to your limbs too. Speak to your legs, speak to your this, to completely get rid of every single piece of impurity within each and every limb of yours. until this man he became control over every single part of his body. Imagine the level we're talking about here. It says about him that he would study with Eliyahu Navi every single day. His name was Rav Shmuel Isaac. Rav Shmuel Isaac was one of the famous Hasidim of Rabbi נחman. And Eliyahu Navi, he used to have Gilu Eliyahu all the time. Eliyahu Navi used to come to him all the time. One time, he saw Eliyahu Navi running in the field. He said, Eliyahu, where are you going? Eliyahu said, what do you mean where I'm going? I'm running to the Lev HaOlam. I'm running to the heart of the world. Rav Shmuel Isaac said, who's the Lev HaOlam? He said, I'm going to the students of Rabbeinu. One of the students of Rabbi נחman. Why? Because they turned their hearts from a heart of stone into a heart of flesh. That's what we're talking about here. The Bodedut. Transform yourself. Be conscious of where you stand. Be honest with Hashem Yitbarach. Every single day, come to the room and speak to Hashem Yitbarach. Go to the forest and speak to Hashem. Rabbi נחman said, even if I have a little kid, I would not be afraid to send him in the forest alone if he's doing the Bodedut. Because when you're going to do this mitzvah, you're protected. He said, I would not be afraid. Go out. Go look at the sun, go look at the stars when it's a night sky, and go speak to Hashem. You're going to see your tefillah goes to a different place. There's such a koach within the words of the tzaddik. This is why we're so, specifically with the inyan of Rabbi נחman, he speaks about the tzaddik, the tzaddik, the tzaddik. People get overwhelmed by this concept. What we don't understand is that the tzaddik is the rosh bayit. When you implement the rosh bayit into the world has order. Thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu, the world has substance. The world exists thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu. So when we speak about the words of Rabbi נחman, these tzaddikim that came to the world and brought such a hope into the world that no tzaddik has really brought before, that these tzaddikim every single generation are bringing back a new hope, to bring a new hope to a generation that seems more lost than ever. This is why we need to spread this light. So more than anything, pick up the Sfarim, pick up the books, open up Sipur Masio, the 13 tales Rabbi נחman told. You're going to see the story of your life unfold before your eyes. Literally unfold before your eyes. It's not even an exaggeration. The story of the lost princess is literally what each and every individual goes through every single day. Every single day. To find a person's soul, to find who he is in this world. So, when you open up the Sfarim, you begin to read a word. You begin to see that the words have so much koach to lift you out of darkness. What Rabbi Natan says, Daf echad misifchei Rabbeinu Yaakov kol hara ba'olam. One page of Rabbi Nachman's books will uproot all the evil in the world. And I can assure you this, when the Mashiach will come, which Rabbi נחman said, Mashiach is going to be one of my Talmidim. Say like this, when the Mashiach is going to come, he's going to recite one page, and everything's going to crumble. All the money, all the sheker, all the kavod of this world, everything's going to crumble. Because when there's such an Emet like this in the world, when there's such a truth that resides like this in the world, it stares you in the face and tells you, wake up, wake up. And it does it according to your level. That's the beauty. It doesn't do it against your free will. It does it what? With you. It lifts you up from the place that you're in. So that's the idea we're trying to be mitchazek on, especially today, because all of this idea is happening right now. It's in the Torah. Souls are being thrown on the street like this in Israel. Nishamot being murdered like this. We don't even understand what's happening. The gravity of these things are so insane that you cannot wrap your head around it. Forget the videos. Nobody should watch that stuff. It says in the Arizal's writing, you should not look at a dead body. You should not look at any of this stuff. And all of that is trying to demoralize us. Everything that these evil people are trying to do is trying to demoralize us. These animals. And it's all trying to demoralize us for one thing. It's the emunah. Emunat chachamim, emunah on ourselves, emunah on Hashem. Emunah on Hashem, emunah on the tzaddik, and emunah on ourselves. These three. These are the three types of emunah we need to have. So I hope, Bezrat Hashem, the merit of this Torah, and the merit of these tzaddikim, the merit of Rabbi נחman, the merit of all the great tzaddikim, that Hashem Baruch should transform the situation for good, because we know that everything will be transformed for good. Just enough emunah, we can bring enough light in the situation, and God willing, see the redemption. Amen.